Jupyter Notebooks for the non-data scientist. Alex, you're a data scientist.
I would not call myself a data scientist, no.
Good, we're in the right place then. So this is me. Hello. My name's Rob. I do things. I make things happen. I do automation. And most important thing to know about me is how to get in touch with me. So best way is via Twitter on SQLDBA with Beard. I have a blog, which is SQLDBA with beard.com. And I am one of the authors of DBA Tools in a Month of Lunches with the fantastic Chrissy Lemaire. You can get the book. It's still in Meep. It's not finished yet, but it's on its way from that link. And there's even a 40% code there for anything that's on Manning's site. We got a problem.
Really?
Yep, we got a problem. Got a problem with running queries. So Alex, you're old like me, so I would imagine that you started off running SQL queries in IDEs that looked like this. Yeah,
I did.
You got your SQL command, or you've got your old name has gone. What's the one on the right called?
Access?
Query Explorer. Query Explorer, I think.
Yep.
And you could, you know, put your query in there, and you could run the query, and then you get your results back, and you could see what was going on. For 2.5 decades, I don't know why that font has decided to be black and not white, but there we go. Houston. I'm gonna change this because I know that Alex will appreciate this. Cute. Let's go back to here. So this is the correct quote. Houston, we've had a problem. I put up all of the PowerShell methods of running PowerShell as well, because it makes it easy to point out where the problem is. Same problems in Management Studio. Same problems in Azure Data Studio, brand new, funky, it's amazing, it's cross-platform, everybody loves it. Still got the same problem. There it is. Alexander, what happens when we press that cross?
Things go away.
Things go away. The results of our query are gone. They're completely gone. Now, imagine it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you're troubleshooting a live production incident, and you've got your results, and then you're moving on through doing more troubleshooting, and it gets escalated up to tier 1 Uber support Alexander, and you say, Alexander, this is a problem. And he says, well, what happens when you ran query that gives us all the information about our application? And you say, oh yeah, it definitely said the really important thing was 30. Alexander knows things. And he says, well, are you sure that it said 30? Because 30 doesn't seem right. I think it probably said 130. And you go, oh yeah, hang on a minute. I'll just have a look back in my, oh, hang on a minute. It's gone. Got no results. And there are a whole number of places where having those results would have been really important. And I know there are things that you can do to make this work, especially in PowerShell and with T-SQL as well. You can make sure you output your results into a file. You can take some action in some way. But more often than not, you're just running your query in Management Studio or Azure Data Studio or in SQL Command, and no results. So we've mentioned Azure Data Studio, and I think nowadays a lot of people really know what it is. But if you want to know what it is, it's a cross-platform environment for data professionals. Cross-platform is all the range, because PowerShell runs cross-platform, SQL will run cross-platform, And there's no reason why you would want to have your SQL running on Linux, on a Unix box, or in a container running on Unix, and have to have a Windows machine as your only method of being able to query it with a desktop program. So Azure Data Studio was the solution because it works the same on Windows, on Mac, on Linux, does exactly the same thing. So it's only for Azure. Number one question, it's called Azure Data Studio. So it's only available to be connecting to Azure. No, wrong. Basically, when something's named Azure, it means it's cool. Microsoft like it. They think it's a great thing. So Azure Data Studio will connect to your data platform wherever it is running. Obviously, it's going to do it's got a lot of capability to connect to all of the Azure data offerings. So SQL Warehouse, Synapse, big data clusters, managed instance, Azure SQL DBs. It's got everything set up to work really well with those. But it will also support all versions of SQL that are currently supported by Microsoft. And you may find that if you try and query older versions of SQL, that you're able to run your T-SQL query and get the results back. Plenty of other functionality might not work, but just for getting your queries, it's probably going to work. And here's the other thing about Azure Data Studio. It looks just like Visual Studio Code. There's Visual Studio Code on the left and Azure Data Studio on the right, or is it the other way around? Whichever. The reason for that is because it's the same code. Under the hood, if you're using Visual Studio, every time, under the hood, if you're doing Azure Data Studio and you're using the stable release, then you're using the same code as the stable release of Visual Studio Code. If you're using the insiders version of Azure Data Studio, then you're using yesterday's insiders version of Visual Studio Code. Why do we have different versions, different products? The fun, jokey answer that I like to give is that data people like pretty colors. Because Azure Data Studio, if you have a look on the left, we've got what looks like a registered servers list. We've got a grouping of our instances that we would like to connect to with different names on them. And we can make them different colors. There's some pretty colors there. There are some other parts of Azure Data Studio where you can get reports and widgets for your instances. And that functionality isn't available in Visual Studio Code. But under the hood, they're basically the same, which means that A, I will frequently mix up the names, so I apologize. And B, everything that I say as to shortcuts or where places are, they're going to be the same between Azure Data Studio and Visual Studio Code. The same things are going to apply. Alexander, you like things that fly in the air? Do you know what that is?
There's so many inappropriate answers I can give, but no, I do not.
So this is a high resolution picture of Jupiter, the planet. It's a fantastic picture. It's of the South Pole. But we're not talking about that Jupiter. We're talking about this Jupiter with a Y. And Jupiter's name comes from the planet Jupiter, obviously. A name that evokes the traditions of ideas and science. It envisions the core languages that they use, Julia, Python, and R. And also it's because when Galileo found the moons of Jupiter, his publication included the data that he used to make that prediction, to say this is what I found. And it's one of the first examples of including the data and the resulting work that you've done to make a conclusion. And because notebooks were built for data scientists, this is another reason that they chose this name. Hang on a minute. You said Jupyter, you said planets. What's a notebook? Well, see, there's cool people in the world, like Terry and Simon here, and they do data sciencey things. And quite frankly, I don't know what they do. They use Python and Spark and R, and they talk about models and predictions, and they run practice tests. I don't know what they do. But I do know that it's very important for businesses to be able to munch up this data, and for the analysts to be able to write predictions in Python or in R, and then enable the business to take decisions on these results. And this is where notebooks started. This is how they came to be. Come on, I'm a DBA. This is me, I'm one of these. I think today I've probably been, let me think about this. Yeah, don't bother asking, I think. Don't bother asking has been the main focus of my morning. Please, can you tell me that? No, just don't bother. Don't ask me that question. I don't want to know. What good is a DBA for a notebook? Why are we going to make use of notebooks in any way? Here we go. Nice and simple for the bearded DBA. A Jupyter Notebook is basically a document that contains text, code, images, and the query results. Beautiful.
There is a question.
No longer do we have a problem. Yes, sir.
So I can install VS Code extensions to ADS. Can I get ADS functionality into VS Code?
You can install some extensions into ADS from Visual Studio Code manually. It's not recommended. It's not supported by the authors normally. So that's my number one suggestion. And the second part of your question is, can I get the same functionality within Azure Data Studio as you get in, move it into Visual Studio Code? Yeah, probably. If you hacked together and compiled the source code for Azure Data Studio, which is online and on GitHub, you could create Azure Data Studio inside Visual Studio Code. But to be honest, I'd leave the teams that are doing the work in Azure Data Studio and let that run. In fact, honestly, almost everything I do for clients is done in Azure Data Studio. All of the PowerShell that I'm writing, all of the work with source control, all of the markdown documents, I just do it in Azure Data Studio. I do have Visual Studio Code on all my machines as well, but most of the time Azure Data Studio just does what I need.
Excellent.
So I think we've had enough of slides. If there are any questions, you will just shout them out.
I will.
Good, good. Let's just look at Azure Data Studio. So we'll transition a little away from notebooks just for a minute and just have a look at Azure Data Studio as a product. Alexander, quiz time. You're gonna love the fact that you're in monitoring me, aren't you? So, what is the #1 requested feature for Management Studio?
Dark mode.
Dark mode. What's one of the most difficult things for the Management Studio programmers to write?
I have no idea where you're going with this, and this is extremely embarrassing.
It's dark mode. So dark mode is the #1 thing that people want for Management Studio, and it is one of the hardest things to put into Management Studio because of the sprawl of millions of lines of code that Management Studio has become. So F1, #1 key to know how to press in Azure Data Studio or Visual Studio Code. It brings up our command palette. And in here, we can spell color incorrectly. And it says preferences, color theme. And I hit enter. And then I have a number of choices for which color that I would like to use. So I can, because I have the PowerShell extension, I can pretend that I'm running PowerShell ISE. And you'll notice, even as I just pass through these choices, that it's automatically previewing what it's going to look like. So you want dark mode, you can have Abyss dark mode. You can have Atom 1 dark mode. You can have Dark Azure Data Studio dark mode, Kimball dark mode. We can keep going. Yeah, this is my angry production DBA mode. Kind of solarized dark mode. You can have Tomorrow Night blue. And these are just the ones that I've got. If you want, there are other themes that you can download, or you can create your own theme. Azure Data Studio and Management Studio and Visual Studio Code are highly customizable, and you can make them do whatever you want. But a wise man told me that you should always do your demos in light mode. So this is what I shall do. If we look at our registered servers list, if you like, we can see that we can split things up, and we can have a different list of people phoning you. No, thank you. I do not want to speak to you. That's the third GroupBy presentation today, I think, where somebody's phoned the presenter. Now, this is available to you here in this servers connections list. And if you want to know where it is stored, let's have a look in our settings. How we find our settings from the cog. And again, it's all searchable, so you could look for PowerShell. You can find all of the PowerShell settings. You've got settings that you can set for your user as a person, for your workspace, which could be a group of folders that you choose to work in. You can create that, or the folder that you're currently in. Up here is a button that says open your JSON. If we have a look in our JSON, then you're going to see that what we've got is our folder name, BeardNook, BeardNook, BeardNook2, BeardNook2, and we've got our server, the database, what type of authentication, the username, and the password. Oh, and the password. It's very interesting. Now, do I have a SQL authenticated user in here? That's a really silly thing to look for, isn't it? Nope, they're all, I think they're all integrated these days. So let's create a new connection. You can hit this button here. We'll pick a instance. That annoys me, it's not a server, this is an instance we're connected to. We'll connect to SQL 2019 N5, and we're going to use SQL login, and we're going to hope that is the password, because it's an excellent password and you're all going to look at it. We're going to add a new group, and we'll call this group Alex Loves Star Wars. I think we'll go green for you today. And we'll press OK. Login failed. Okay, in which case it's probably that. No, login failed. I'll have one more go at this, because this was off the hat. Let's see what we get. Oh, login failed. You can find that your password will get saved in there. So note to Rob, add a username and password into here. So when we've got our connection here, let's have a look. We've got 2017 N5. We can look at our databases. We've got factory. This is a factory system. We've got a donut factory, a sausage factory, a sock factory, and some others. You've got your server objects. You've got some things for your security. You've got no availability groups. You've got no extended events. There are a number of things here that you can't do. If we look at a table, we've got the capability to select the top 1,000. We can edit the data. We can script as create or script as drop. And we've got properties here. And when we press properties, what happens is, luckily I had Management Studio already open, otherwise it's got to fire it up. There is your Management Studio interaction. So within Azure Data Studio, you can get back to your properties windows for Management Studio for whatever property you chose. But things are missing. Let's have a look. We've got no SQL agent. If we right click and manage, we have a number of widgets, let's call them. Some of these come by default. Some of these you have to install via the extensions over here. But if we have a look at our SQL agent, we look at all jobs. What we've got is a nice pretty colors. Remember we were talking about pretty colors before. List of the jobs that we had and a little thing about the previous runs, how long they took, and green is good, red is bad. So we can see some information there. However, sometimes the information isn't quite what you want. Oh, that's an SSIS failure. So that's pretty much what you'd expect. But you won't find all of the failure information in here that sometimes that you'll want. We'll come back to this page in a minute. How do we open a new, no, we don't want to do that. We want to do a new query first, Rob. How do we look at a query? Let's start with a query in this database. So we'll look at DBA checks database and we'll get some DBA checks results. It's just T-SQL. You've got your T-SQL here. You can, of course, if you do Control and N, just start typing select, and you've got IntelliSense built in. But what we have here is a list of results, and whilst we can copy and paste them, and here's a cool trick, if I select a portion of the results and press Control and C, then I've got the results up there, but we have got our results, just the ones that we've selected, copied out. So that's kind of neat. You can export all of those out, but still, same thing happens. If I hit close, it's gone. Even here, no, don't save. Hit file, you can find all of the things. But remember, always start with F1. F1, we'll type notebook. Here are all the things that we can do with a notebook. Let's start with a new notebook. Now I've already got everything installed. When you first want to start to install, to open or work with a notebook, you're going to find that you get Python. Ah, it's not going to come up. Let's come up to here. You're going to get your Python. The beautiful thing of open source software is it keeps on iterating and new things keep happening, which also means that things you don't look at very often disappear from where you expect them to be. But it's going to ask you to install Python, and that can take a proportion of time, 5 or 10 minutes, that sort of amount of time. And it's going to install Python in your user directory in the Azure Data Studio folder of your app data. And that's the place it's going to do. So it puts it there, so it's out of the way from any other Python installation that you might have on your machine. But it's up there. And the Python is what enables you to run your notebook. So you've got a kernel here. And the kernel is the thing that's going to run the code that you put into your notebook. And you have a choice of SQL, which is going to run transact SQL against a SQL Server instance or database. And then you have PySpark, Spark, Scala, Spark R, Python. If you want to know how to use those, then please go and ask Terry and Simon or other people know about these. And you have PowerShell. Excellent. Cross-platform, works on any machine. We've got SQL and we've got PowerShell. Yeah. Heads up, that PowerShell, not truly cross-platform. Yes, it'll work on Windows and it will work on Linux, but it won't work the same. Because on Windows machine, it's going to use Windows PowerShell 5.1. And on a Unix or Mac, it's going to run PowerShell 6.2.3. So PowerShell core, but a different version, which might just behave slightly differently in different places. We'll choose SQL. Now we have some buttons along top. We've got code, we've got text, trusted, run cells, clear results, collapse cells. That's all. We could hit this button here, and we can now start writing some Markdown. Markdown is how we put the text into our document. Remember, a notebook is text, images, code, and query results. So we can start writing some notebooks. So we can say something like, let's do it this way, list of things to do in the morning. As you can see, you get live preview of your spelling mistakes. Perfect. But this is just Markdown. And we can now start writing ourselves a list of things to do in the morning. Hang on a minute. Okay, we've got a spelling mistake, but we haven't actually got what we think we've got. So here's a beautiful thing. You don't just need one space at the end of the line. You need 2 spaces. Magic happens. So we're going to have a list of things for Alex, the junior DBA, to do first thing in the morning. We're probably going to want them to be a bulleted list. Now, the latest update of Azure Data Studio has given you this beautiful toolbar along the top for adding in lists. So you can put in the different types of bullet lists. But basically, I like to run the command line, so we can do this. So the first thing that Alex needs to do is get me some coffee, and then check the backups, and then make sure no devs have SA. And you see it just comes out at the bottom. We can see what's going on. But you know, we want to make sure we do this thing precisely. So I mean, it's possible that he might not get me the coffee first because he didn't realize that this, you know, let's make this a 1. We just put in here, we'll make this a 2, and we'll put 3. You know what? I'm feeling kind. I'm feeling kind. There we go. We'll say, get yourself some coffee, you know, because, you know, why not? Let's be nice. Hang on a minute. There's a problem with that list because, you know, I'm asking him to check the backups, probably the most important thing that we want to do, but he hasn't got any coffee yet. So let's just put that in there. And as you can see, it's going to label it 1, 4, 2. Oh, here's how you can play havoc with your coworkers. You can put any number in here, and Hugo will be pleased that I still remember that he is the one that wanted to know how big this number could be. And we've worked out it's an int. And you can put any number you like in here, and it will just come out as 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is a double click and another double click to make it go away. So what your colleagues are going to see is the list of things to do in the morning, and because they know about this or because they go and explore, they'll know that what they can do is they can just double click to get in to edit this notebook. Oh, what is this that's going on? It's a lot of fun. Let's be serious. Why are we going to do this? Here are a number of reasons that you could use a notebook. Okay. We have a workflow list for Alex, the junior DBA. We could include the code in here to check the backups, to run the report as to whether who's got SA or who's not. We can ensure we've got all of the things that Alex needs. We can describe what they are and what the results should be and what to do if those results don't work. We could show things off. Here is the query tuning that I did. Look, it's amazing. I did this and then I added a, hang on, that sounds like a presentation. Absolutely. You will see people doing presentations with notebooks because the query results are saved. If we make a mistake, then we could go to a notebook that we'd previously run some results on, and it's not there, good. And we would have the results available to be able to see. Let's write some T-SQL. We're going to select a connection. And quite often what people will ask here is, can I connect to multiple instances? Yep, you absolutely can. You're going to do this by adding in a text, and you see, magic button. Look at this magic button. It appears, goes away, appears, goes away. It's a pain in the neck at times when you want to find it. So we're going to add some text. We're going to put, let's make it big. Oh, bold. Yeah, we want some bold. And sarcastic, I think this is. Alex. Alex. There we go, sarcastically. You must change the connection here. So the only way that you're going to do it is by giving your users information. So you can't just flip between one instance and another within the notebook programmatically. You've got to say to your user, go up here, change the connection that you're connected to, and do it. Second question that we normally ask, and in fact, Alex asked it before this presentation started. Can I have blocks that are SQL and blocks that are Python and blocks that are Spark and blocks that are PowerShell? No, you can't. Your notebook is only in Azure Data Studio. This is your notebook code block is going to run the language that you choose for the kernel, and that's all you can do. You can say, Alex, you must change the kernel here, but I wouldn't recommend doing that because it does flip things around in the background, and it's not the best option. So I would just refer to another notebook, refer to the PowerShell notebook and refer back to the SQL notebook. That's probably the best way of doing it. So we've got our SQL, and we're going to write select top 2 star from, wouldn't it be good if we could just drag. In Management Studio, then you can do that. You can just drag your table or your database or your columns in and get everything that you want. But unfortunately, it's not something that's available here. So we will do check results. And we press play. No surprise, we get an error because we've connected to our default database, which is going to be master. So what we're going to need to do here is exactly like you think. We're going to say use DBA checks, giving us some IntelliSense. And there we go. Now we've got our results. So what I would like Alex to remember is something unique about these results. Let's find, there we go. So one of them ends with, how good are you with numbers? 324642?
32464223.
Okay, right. So what happens if we hit this cross here? Where are my results going to be when you want to come back and see them again? Let's put them in temp because that's the best place to put it. And we'll call this Alex's notebook. Gone. No, not gone. Let's do F1 and let's open a notebook. And we'll go to Alex's notebook and we go 3246423. So where is that data being held is normally the next question I get. So let's close this again and we will go to Visual Studio Code because I've got it open, and we'll do Control O and we'll open up Alex's notebook, and lo and behold, what we've got, some JSON. And if we look for, what was the number?
324 something.
324 something. Let's try 324. There we go. Look at that. You can see here are our results. So we've found there is the time that the DBA check was run. And if you look at this, we're in a block that's called data. We've got the fields. So you've got, here are your columns. We come back and look at this. Oh, yay. Thanks for opening up in the same thing. Alex's notebook. There we go. Date, label, describe, context, name, database. Here they are. Name, label, describe, context, name, database, computer name, instance, result, failure message. And then here's our data, each row by row. So two things here. If we put our notebooks into source control, I think you should put your notebooks into source control because they're just flat files and you can do comparisons. If you are looking at a set of results that's got 100 rows in it, doing a comparison between this and the other one can become quite troublesome. There's no easy way to do a compare. I've opened an issue on the GitHub saying, please, can we make this easier? But we don't have any way of doing that easily. Secondly, Alex, how would you feel if this was your birth date and your name and your address?
Slightly uncomfortable.
Slightly uncomfortable. Alexa apparently isn't very sure about that. There we go. Important point. This is a flat file. This has the results in it. If your data that you're returning from your queries is PII, it's controlled by some sort of, your company has restrictions on where you're allowed to save it, make sure you think about this with your notebooks as well. You don't want to just be putting this data anywhere, like in GitHub or something like that. Secondly, if this query returns 1.5 gigabytes of data, how big is my notebook going to be? Yep. It's going to be 1.5 plus gigabytes of JSON, and it's going to be really slow to open. And your machine's going to complain, and Azure Data Studio at some point is going to crash. That's what's going to happen. Equally, if you have 10, 20, 30, 40 code blocks, and you think, look at this button here, the run cells button. It's a brilliant button. You can run all of the cells at once in order, in the order that they are in the notebook. Great, but if you've got 100 of them, it'll crash. I don't know what the limit is, but it will crash. So let's take this to a realistic, another realistic solution. Remember I said Azure Data Studio doesn't have extended events, 2017, Rob. But let's just say we've got this extended event called Monitor Windows Login, and we're going to watch our live data. 2017, Rob. It's the 2017 one, Rob. This is because my normal trick is to run this against a different instance and wonder why I don't get any results. Right, let's stimulate. Let's also simulate the beard. Rob, yep, good. We'll simulate some some connections. So, you know, Gianluca Sartori, John Martin, Andre Cameron, Chrissy Lemaire, Grant Ritchie, because he loves extended events, Claudio Silva, and oh, look, the password of this account is expired. Excellent. So we've got some people making connections. And look, there we go. Our extended event is working. Gianluca Sartori is working furiously on making workload tools work. And let's see if we've got anybody else coming through here. Yep, Grant Fritchie, there we go. It's extended events, so we've got to have some Grant Fritchie going through here. So we've got our live data here in Management Studio. Now, imagine Alex is a junior DBA. He's not, he's an awesome person, not junior in any way. But we could use some T-SQL and we could give this notebook to him and say, please, can you get me the number of logins per day onto this instance? Here's a piece of advice. There's nowhere stored in that JSON the user who has run the query or the dates that it was run. So I would advise doing something like that. Just putting the date in as an execution time so you know when it was running, and putting S username or whatever you would like to put in also in the query for the user that has run the notebook. Just because at 3 o'clock in the morning when you raise your instance up to tier 1, Alexander, and he says, well, which account did you use to run that query? Of course, you're going to get the wrong answers. At least it's in your notebook and you know, rather than going, I think I used the admin account, but I'm not really very sure. So we've got our extended events and we've got a query, and the query is going to show nothing because you're connected to 2019, Rob. So we're going to connect to 2017 because that's the instance that we're running against. And you can see when I pressed go, it starts spinning. That means the query is running. Now it's finished. And we've got our results. And the results are just going to show that the number of unique logins we've got going through is just 2. Wow. And also that I haven't done any preparation for this particular demo. Otherwise, you'd have numerous ones. But this is something that I use and have written for clients so that they could see how many unique logins have been connecting to their instance or connecting to a particular database or connecting to a particular table when we were looking at what we were doing with migrations. And we just had an extended events there running, and it just ran, gathered the information, and this query would run it. But anybody could run this, and the results are saved. Here's something else that's super cool. Let's just make sure that that's still running. No, it's not. Let's do it again. And you can see we have just got, no, we haven't captured Andre. Let's carry this on running again, just because it's fun. Remember this page. This page here has got all sorts of cool information. Here's a little bit of always on information. It's not going to show anything because this instance hasn't got any availability groups at all. We've got some more pretty pictures, some resource usage, how many sessions we've got on our instance. You can see, just grabbing a few of them going through there. We've got an instance level report. So we've got how many VLFs we've got on our databases. We've got the top weights that we've come through. And a few other system stats, IO stats, memory stats. There's some more information around here. But database space unit. Let's go back to our agent. So our agent here is a bit like the job monitor. We've got some list of results of what's been happening. But along the top here, you can see you can set up and work with your proxies. You could set up and work with your operators. You can create alerts and notebooks. Holy moly, look at this. This is very cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this notebook. We're connected to 2017, Rob. I'm going to keep having to remind myself. Up here, we've got a clear results button. That's going to take away the results from our notebook. So we're going to save that again. And Now we're going to create a new notebook job. So we click on notebook job. A notebook path is going to take me a second to find. And it is going to be in my Jupyter Notebooks repository. So on GitHub, you'll find a Jupyter Notebooks repository, and you can go and take any of these notebooks. We've got an extended events one, and we've got getting extended events session with T-SQL. We've got a storage database. This is the database where we're going to store all notebook job metadata and results. And we've got an execution database. This is a database against which we're going to run our queries by default. So we're on 2017. I'm going to run this against, I'm going to save this in donut, sausage, or sock?
Sausage.
Sausage, there we go. And we're going to run it, it doesn't matter because it's going to, the query's already there, but we'll run it against empty DBHX. I'm going to call this the job name here. I wonder if this bug has been fixed. It has, excellent. So this is the name of our job. In the previous version, that every time you typed a character in there, it would flip the focus away somewhere different. You could pick a schedule if you wanted to, and we've got a description box here. This is Alex's job because we love him. Oh, and we can't type. Here we go. We'll press OK, and then our job comes here. Now it also appears in our list if we sort to ascending. Yes, if we refresh it so that it gets the latest one, and then we sort it ascending. No, it's because it's hidden over here. Notebooks. Got our job, we'll run our job. We know it's not going to take very long to run. And you remember, which database did we choose? We chose the Sausage Factory. And if we were to look in the Sausage Factory, we would find two tables. We found a materialized table and a template table. If we look in the template table, we've got a job ID, the notebook, the databases to be executed against. If there was an error, the last run error, and because our notebook is just JSON, it's going to sit in the notebooks column. And in our materialized table, we're going to get the job ID. It's going to match back how long it took to, when it was run and what date it was run, and a notebook. Was there an error? Is it deleted? Is it pinned? Notebook name. Okay. If we come back to here, if I refresh this folder, what I've got here is the recent run of this job. And if I double click that, it's a notebook. Notebook was run at 4:17, so less than a minute ago. Here is the query that we ran, and here is our results. So we've dynamically run our SQL notebooks. Remember, SQL notebook. We've dynamically run our SQL notebook in an agent job, which we could run as a schedule, or perhaps our junior DBA could have that for the first time they're on call. Just go and run this job. This will collect a whole load of information. Maybe you want the best practice checks from the Tiger team. I've changed that into a notebook so you could run. Don't run that notebook as an agent job. That is one with many, 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 many queries on, and it will crash if you press the run all cells, which also means that if you try and do it in an agent job, then it won't work and it will fall over and it won't give you the results you want. What you need to do is take the particular queries that you want to run and put them into a new notebook and just use those. You'll see that it's called it the name of the notebook that the name of the agent job, and added on the time that the timestamp as well. I think this is so cool. Super, super useful. Really, really good. Are there any questions about that? Because normally that spins up somebody saying something.
No, it's been curiously quiet. I think they're in awe. I am.
I hope they're all learning things. That's all I want.
I am.
Good. So we will Control W and we will shut this. Let's shut Alex's notebook and holy moly. So in a browser, how do you close a tab, Alex?
Control W.
Exactly the same in Azure Data Studio. In a browser, how do you reopen the tab that you accidentally closed, Alex?
Control Shift T.
Exactly the same in Azure Data Studio. Oh yes, that face. Now I found that out by accident. I found that out by just muscle memory going, oh, I've closed that. Oh no, not that one. Control Shift T. Oh look. So that's a very, very cool thing. And in fact, what I should have done, if I do a screencast mode in here, then I can show you. So Control and Shift and a T, bingo, up it comes. So what other things can we do in a notebook? In Azure Data Studio, this is the list of all of the notebooks in all of the directories that I have open on the file system, which is good, but also a little confusing because you just get everything all in one crunch. Whereas if we looked at this one and we look at the File Explorer view, you can see this is the Jupyter Notebooks repository that I was talking about. You can make use of all of this. If you want to play with the new .NET notebooks that we were talking about before the session, there's some of those here. You can see things like the PRs that I run when I did DBA checks. And we could see, let's try opening an archive one. Multiple instances. As you can see, even though this is a .NET interactive notebook, it still will open inside Azure Data Studio. I can't run it because it's wants to use a different version of PowerShell than we've got. But you can actually see that I checked out some code, that I ran some checks. Here are my DBA checks. And the beautiful thing about my .NET interactive output is I do get colors. In Azure Data Studio, I don't get the color output from my PowerShell. And you can see that we've got all of these. These are all fine. Some of these tests will pass and fail because we're checking, well, I'm just checking that everything works. But here are my results from this PR. What was this? 734. And this is a way that you can use your notebook to store results of things that you have done. Whether that thing is deploying a new version of code, deploying a new database, deploying a new SSIS, whatever that may be, whatever that workflow that you have might be, if you need to keep a record of it, then this is a brilliant way of doing it. We've talked about 3 o'clock.
There's another question actually, and this one's from Ben Miller. Can you change the version of PowerShell that is used in a notebook on a Windows machine? Because you mentioned that it's not running the latest PowerShell, correct?
I did mention that. So the problem is that this is running inside Python. So because it's running inside Python, it's using a PowerShell package. So if we would like to look at a PowerShell, let's do this. So we're F1. Always start with F1. We'll create ourselves a new notebook and we'll change the kernel to PowerShell. I haven't got a Linux machine up and running, which is slightly annoying. So we're going to wait for this kernel just to choose, and we're going to do this. And we're going to say PS version table. And we get IntelliSense, whether it's PowerShell or SQL. And we'll do Shift and Enter. No, because that's .NET Interactive. There we go. So we're in PowerShell Windows version 5. So I have never tried this, Ben, but I'm assuming that because I have PowerShell core, which is PWSH, running on my machine, that I could do that. However, looks like that's not going to work. So let me show you what that would have looked like. If we, if we opened up CMD, oh, I haven't got my background on this machine. Oh, that's a shame. I was going to ask you another question. And if we typed PWSH in there, then it's going to bing straight open into PowerShell 7. And we know we're in PowerShell 7 because my prompt says so. But we could then type PowerShell, and that'll then dump us back into Windows PowerShell. Wrong. PS version table 5.1. Now, as you can see, in all of that time, this would have worked. So the answer to your question, Ben, is no. And I've learned something. So thank you. So 3 o'clock in the morning. We talked about that as a way of recording what it was that you were doing at 3 o'clock in the morning. And Alexander, when do I finish? 1:45 the hour.
Well, you can keep going to 1:45. That works.
Okay, cool. You can use it to record what it is that you've done. So you could write templates for how you as a business normally start gathering information. You could maybe run an agent job that's going to gather your weights or your user connections or what other jobs were happening on the instance when everything fell over. And that's really good. You will find if you deal with Microsoft support for things, Azure data things particularly, big data cluster things especially, and other SQL things as they come through, that they are going to send you a notebook. Because it's much easier for them to say, hey, could you just run this notebook and then send it back to us with the results in, please, than it is to say, hey, Alexander, what time zone are you in? Please can we arrange a call when I'm available so that you can then look at my machine and tell me what to run, and then you can go, oh, no, you can't copy and paste from my machine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and all of that confusion. You just send me a notebook. Here, I want you to run this. Oh yeah, here you go. Here's the results back. And you can look at them in your own time. This is something that Microsoft are doing. If you have clients that you support in that way, then maybe you could do that sort of thing. Now, I don't necessarily mean if your company supports external clients, but as a production DBA, my clients might be the people that run reports against the data warehouse. It could be the users that are exporting data out of this particular system. It could be the developers who need to have pre-prod in a certain state. All of these things will have normal sort of issues that we have. How much easier is it if you say to them, hey, I know you've got a problem. I know you want a meeting just to sort it out, but can you just run this notebook, give me the results, and then I'll be able to help you. We can then maybe sit and talk it down and work through how things work. Another super way of using notebooks. Let's dive into a different notebook. I love doing this session because I just go, yeah, what notebook shall I pick? Let's pick a different notebook. So Ben's here, so let's do a PowerShell notebook. So how about how easy is it to find out on which agent jobs are interacting with each other? Sounds like a strange question, but if you've got the job activity monitor open and there's 200 jobs on this instance, how do you know which ones are running at the same time? Sure, you could filter them by start time, but maybe some of them run for 12 hours and some of them run for 2 hours. Are they overlapping? DBA Tools has this thing which was written by Martian, who also does SQL Watch. And what we're going to do is just run through this notebook. So you see it's automatically opened as a PowerShell notebook. And got some instructions here. Alter the code below to, oh, for Freya. that was for Kendra when she was monitoring me. Put instance in the single quotes and choose how many days back you need the information. Okay. You can see here I've got a code block. And this code block just says run this cell to check the prereqs. So we'll just do what it says. And what it's going to do is it's going to say the PowerShell gallery is trusted, and I will continue. We have the DBA tools module already. If I hit this little button here, you can see what was running was some PowerShell. We were just checking some things, but we collapsed this cell Now, when you collapse the cell, it means that your users see the first line. So best if you make the first line a comment that says, don't go messing with this, just click the button over there, rather than select top 100, and then they start thinking, well, 100 what? Start interacting with what's going on. So we've got our instance, we're at 2017 N5, we'll go days behind, and we're just going to hit go. And what's going to happen is magic. Okay, what's going to happen is we've got a file name. We're going to get our agent job history from the instance between the start date and the start date +1. And then it's going to convert it to a DBA timeline and then put out file to wherever we've decided to save it. And then what we get is this fantastic output. Here is the agent job history for the last day for this particular instance, and it's named instance name, day name, and the date. And you can see, okay, there's not a lot happening here, but you could see that if, for example, this SQL Logger agent history ran for all of those 10 hours, it would stand out as being unusual. But you could also see which other jobs were running at the same time and whether they succeeded or failed. It's a super, super useful thing. Has helped me so many times with, well, why is this ETL happening? Well, yes, because you think that these things are following each other, but actually these two are like overlapping like this now because there's more data in there. Oh yeah, look, we can see it nice and easily. But the beauty is that this agent job, this notebook is just available for anybody to run. How about if, oops, let's do that one. Let's do audit. Another thing that we've done. Let's get our instance permissions to Excel. We need to give our business user, one of the business unit users, some information about who has access to X databases and what sort of access they have. So what we gave them was the capability to run this notebook. Again, check for modules, make sure, yep, we've got DBA tools module, we've got the import Excel module. If you're into writing PowerShell, if you're connecting to data, obviously DBA tools is the place to go. But the import Excel module is a beauty. So what we're going to do is we're going to run this first, nothing happens, and then I'm going to run this, and it's going to go off and do some stuff. Now, as you can see, as far as the user is concerned, all they have to do is press play, and then this is all going to happen. Yes, of course, the user needs to have the permissions to be able to get the information about the users from the instance, and that's completely okay for this use case, but something to be aware of. Now, what we've not done is just taken our results and piped them as a CSV into an Excel sheet. Oh no. What we've done is we've written something that says this worksheet shows the user permissions for each database on this instance at this time. The cells are color-coded as following. Here are some colors. Here are what the colors mean. You can filter by database on the object column. You can filter by user group login in the member column. We go permissions, bingo, look at this. We've got the results, we've got a table, we've got color coding. So you can quickly see that Andre Kaman has got no server permissions. I wonder what he does have. We could go through here, we'll have a look. Here we go, he has got database owner on the database Donut Factory. Now, some would say that's because Andre likes donuts, but I would not wish to comment. But you can see how useful this is, how useful it is for our business users, and how they don't need to go, oh, can we write this? Can you help us write this? Do I need to create some PowerShell somewhere? No, I just got a notebook. And in fact, normally I would do this, but there's the problem. We actually need to give them two pieces of information. So we need to get them to put in the directory they want the thing saved and the instance as well. And that's a little bit of an issue when you collapse a cell, but you know, it's workable. But it leads to the other question. And the question is, do variables pass between cell blocks in a notebook? In a PowerShell notebook, yes, they absolutely do. As long as your user doesn't restart the kernel, or Azure Data Studio crashes, or they come back to it, yeah, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In SQL, I believe that they do not still. I haven't checked for a little while. It's the same with temp tables, because you've got it's a different process as doing the connection for each cell block. But that definitely is an issue that's open and that is being worked on, as you can see at GitHub. Last thing you could do, a suggestion, you could do some training for your junior DBAs. So let's talk about file groups. We could create a test database. We could look at some file groups, put some data in them, look where the data is, and then start creating file groups. So you could actually build up a set of training. That means that when we're talking about file groups with junior DBA number 1, they can just work through this. But when we start looking at file groups for junior DBA number 2, it's okay, we've still got a notebook to give them. It's another way that you can use notebooks for. So I have done a lot of talking, and I think I have passed on as much information as I need to right now. I could probably carry on talking for another 2 hours, but are there any questions? Is there anything else anybody would like to see?
Now is your chance. People have been surprisingly quiet, but here is the chance.
We got nothing?
Nope, we have 58 quiet attendees, and
58.
that is concerning.
Okay, rightio. In which case, what do you say? I've got 6 minutes. Let's blow some minds then.
I wonder if people realize what you just did.
We can do this. What did I just do?
No, well, what they did by not asking questions, because then this is going to happen. Well, there is actually one question, and that question is, where can I get the code for this presentation? That's from Sonny.
Okay, so can you find my Jupyter Notebooks GitHub repo, my friend? It'll be on the front page of my notebook.
And Dwayne says that my brain hurts, but in a good way.
No, it's cool. So let's do this. There's another kind of notebook. So the new funky notebooks are called .NET Interactive Notebooks. And what Rob needs to do is try and type this. Where are we? Documents, GitHub, Jupyter Notebooks. Radio. So we've got Anaconda running. If you want to know how to set all of this up, then go and search Google for .NET Interactive Notebooks. And there's a list of prereqs that you need to do. Once you've done that, you'll have Anaconda. This is it running in Windows Terminal. And all we typed was Jupyter Lab, and up popped our browser. And whilst the browser is still running, I just want to make sure I've got Docker running. Come on, Docker, catch up. Oh dear, Docker's broken.
Did you break Docker?
I did. I didn't have it running. It's not going to start. But you know what? What's the beautiful thing about notebooks?
Sneaky.
What we've got, let's go up one. Let's do the DBA tools one. Here is a set of notebooks. Hello. There we go. Let's start there. Here is a set of notebooks, which, as you can see, have some text, have some images, and have the code to create some containers on your machine and connect to them. And look, here are our results. So you can see that it ran. Look, an error occurred. There we go. That's why it won't run. It's not going to do it in 4 minutes. So what happens in these notebooks is I have a set of a container called DBHX demo. It's just got SQL 2019 and pubs, AdventureWorks, and I think it's got wide world importers on it as well. And we create ourselves a couple of Docker connections. So as long as you've got Docker running, look, we've even got some examples of how to troubleshoot what's gone wrong. If something goes wrong, here's how we get our logs. Here's an example log. And then we can do an introduction. Here's another thing that you can use a notebook for, showing off the cool thing that you built. I've done some for DBHX. Here are some DBA tools one, but this could be the latest monitoring solution you've built for your enterprise, or it could be the queries that you've improved over the last 10 minutes. But now we can put in some information. How do we write some commands? So I can actually run this one. We've got our .NET PowerShell. So you see we're running .NET PowerShell, and this is PowerShell core. This is PowerShell 7. And for Ben, the modules that get installed by default are slightly different to the ones that you would get from PowerShell 7 normally. So just check that bit out, because I know if this Ben I know, then he'll need to know that. But we can just press Shift and Enter, and we're actually going to run some code. You can see down here at the bottom, it says .NET PowerShell is busy. It means our code is running, and there are our results. But we still have saved all of our results. This is how we run through some DBA tools. We've got a backup and restores notebook, which will actually do some backing up and some restoring of the databases for you. We've got one that works with availability groups. Yep, you can create availability groups on containers with DBA tools and play with them. Logins and users, extended events, and some agent jobs. Most important, a cleanup as well. You can clean stuff up. So that is a super quick run through .NET Interactive notebooks. They are equally as cool. No, there is no SQL, but yes, there is some .NET true cross-platform PowerShell.
That is super cool. There is actually questions from Damu. How do we put these notebooks in source control?
These notebooks are in source control. They're just flat files. So they're in GitHub for you to find. If we're in our Azure Data Studio and we have this as a Git repository, you can see that we can, let's go to there. We've got some things, so we could look at, what do we do? This one, here we go. We could add in some, a git commit message. So why always your git commit message should be, why did we make a change? So made a change because my beard is longer than Alex's. There we go.
And you're out of time.
Ah, look at this. So, no, just commit this one anyway. And here's how you can see we've got our compare tool automatically built into Azure Data Studio, but you can see what the differences look like. It's a little bit easier to see the differences in PowerShell output because this is just going to be a difference in the file name. So you can see literally we've got a red there and we've got a red 0 there and a 1 there. So that's literally all we do. And then we can just push and pull. Are we connected to the interwebs? Let me have a look. Yep, we're connected to Beard Wi-Fi, so everything is good. That's gone up to GitHub, and now this is how you can find all of my code, all of my presentations, everything that I do. GitHub.com SQLDBA with the beard. Presentations are here. If we look there, you've got, you know what year it is, Alex?
2021.
There we go. And you know which event you're at?
No.
And there is the PowerPoint ready for you. And if you look in our Jupyter Notebooks, and if we look at our commit history, there it is. Oops.
There we go.
So that's how simple it is. Was there another question?
There is a final question because then you're really out of time.
I'm really,
So
really out of time. Yep.
any plans you know of for the SQL kernel to be included in .NET Notebooks? And would it be great? Would be great to if it was included, would then be independent of Azure Data Studio?
So whenever you want to know questions about this, you need to learn how to type. And then the second thing you need to know is .NET Interactive. There we go. This is where the .NET Interactive team work. As with all the things, you look at the issues. If we look at an open issue, we look for SQL. And all we've got is a link from some bloke here. Look at this. That's the thing about doing the compares. It doesn't appear that the .NET Interactive issues have got anything to do with SQL in them. Perhaps we could search for our, because the other way of doing it would be, of course, to bring the .NET Interactive into Azure Data Studio. And again, what we do is we go to Azure Data Studio, we look at this, and if we look for interactive, that's a guess. Here we go. There's nothing obvious in there as to whether that's in place or not. There is a thing about the PowerShell Studio version. You can opening a .NET Interactive notebook in Azure Data Studio can sometimes break the formatting, but I've not had that issue, but I know that Sean has. That's the lovely Sean from DBA Tools there.